Discover 6 incredible avocado mistakes seniors must avoid for amazing health transformation. The dinner party was animated. Laughter bubbled like a fizzy soda, echoing through the quaint Ohio home. But for Helen, a spirited 72-year-old retired teacher, the joyful symphony only accentuated her growing sense of inadequacy. Watching her grandchildren dashing around, full of life and boundless energy, she felt like a ghost in her own skin. The vibrant chaos reminded her of moments when she was the one instigating laughter, commanding attention in a classroom. Now, at family gatherings, she was no longer the captivating storyteller but rather a spectator, her secrets of resilience slipping through her fingers. She knew she had to change, to somehow keep pace with the youth that invigorated her, but anxiety tightened around her like a vice. It was during one of these reflections that Mia, her enthusiastic granddaughter, introduced her to avocados, raving about their plethora of health benefits. "Grams, they boost energy and help with weight loss," she chirped, holding up the glossy green fruit as if it were a dazzling gem. Helen felt a flicker of hope ignite within, an ember diminished for too long. Could this be her pathway back? She envisioned herself blossoming with each bite, fueled by the very magic of this mysterious fruit. Yet, as she embarked on her culinary adventure, hurdles arose with ruthless precision. At the supermarket, the bright green skins beckoned. She reached for a plump avocado, only to realize too late it was overripe and mushy, a disappointing disaster that left her stomach churning with frustration. Portion sizes confused her. Was one avocado a day a feast or a folly? And balancing the healthy fats against her need for other nutrients made her feel like she was solving an intricate math problem with every meal prep. The fear that she might be perceived as outdated haunted her like an uninvited specter. The younger generations prided themselves on their knowledge, their fads. If she stumbled, if her love for avocados somehow exposed her deeper uncertainties, would they see her as a relic of the past, a class full of empty chairs? She strained against this encroaching self-doubt, heart racing at the notion that every misstep would shatter the bonds of understanding and connection she cherished with her family. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But the anguish of doubts reached a peak as she began to understand the complexities of her new obsession. One evening, when she felt she was finally grasping the essence of healthy cooking, Mia, concerned by her grandmother's fixation, voiced her worries. "Grams, I think it might be a bit much, this whole avocado thing," she said, hesitant yet determined. Instead of encouragement, Helen detected judgment, a critical layer to the careful admiration she had so deeply craved. She felt exposed, her mind racing through every miscalculated decision that led her to this moment of confrontation. The kitchen, once a sanctuary, now transformed into a battleground for her identity. Would she concede or rally for her health transformation, dimming her voice in light of familial pressure? Now, shadows danced behind her eyes as her inner conflict clawed at her spirit. Beneath the tangle of hurt feelings and familial love, a forgotten drive surfaced. Could she write a cookbook defined by strong narratives and healthy recipes for seniors, connecting generations through food? The kitchen, alive with the aroma of melting avocado, held her captive as she wrestled with her next move. Would she weave the strength of her dreams into this delicious journey, or allow Mia's fear to pen a different story, one where she faded quietly into the shadows, leaving behind the laughter that once ignited the very essence of her spirit? Helen stood at the kitchen counter, the half-mashed avocado before her a tangible representation of the conflict brewing within. The evening light cast long shadows across the countertops, and she contemplated the words that Mia had shared. The air was thick with uncertainty, and for a moment, her kitchen felt less like a culinary workshop and more like a stifling convention, where every unsaid word pressed down on her spirit. As she scooped the green flesh into a bowl, her mind was a whirlwind of questions. What if Mia was right? Was she obsessing over something frivolous to mask her fears about aging? Or was this simply a detour on the path toward a revived sense of self? The vibrant energy of her grandchildren teased at her heart, tugging her toward a vibrant future. This kitchen had birthed hundreds of meals, but it could also become the incubator for something transformative. Helen took a deep breath, her fingers rhythmically working the avocado into a smooth puree. She envisioned the children gathering round the dining table as she regaled them with tales of her own childhood. In those moments, she had felt invincible, essential. Could she once again command their attention and admiration, simply by sharing the good food she prepared? The thought ignited a flicker of determination. What if she formulated her culinary evolution not around her fears, but around the stories woven into each recipe? A cookbook that told not just of avocados, but also of laughter, failure, and renewal. Each chapter could mirror significant life lessons she had learned. They would be narratives steeped in wisdom, wrapped in deliciousness. But a new tension flickered to life within her. A cookbook was no small undertaking. Could she weave her personal experiences with culinary insights into something relevant and relatable? The writing process would require revealing vulnerabilities to the world, an intimidating leap into the unknown. Helen recalled her experiences of teaching high school students, of crafting lessons that made dry subjects come alive. She had always found joy in creating spaces where others could thrive. The very idea felt exhilarating, but also unbearably daunting. The clock ticked steadily on the wall, time passing as the embers of fresh motivation battled against her doubts. An idea started to form, a plan to channel her energy into crafting recipes while melding in the life lessons learned over decades. She would gather thoughts, writings, and moments of laughter shared with family, sketching them into snapshots that danced on the pages of her upcoming creation. With renewed vigor, she picked up her phone and opened the note-taking app. Each tap on the screen felt like a step toward reclaiming the voice she believed had diminished. She summoned memories, those moments spent in the garden picking ripe vegetables, laughter shared over Sunday dinners, the way her husband would always try to guess her secret ingredients. As she typed, Helen felt warmth spreading through her chest. This was more than just about avocados. It was about legacy. It was about connection. If she could just put pen to paper and write the stories bound within the fragile skins of aging fruit, perhaps she could nourish not only herself, but others longing for the same connection to their roots. Just as she saved the notes, her phone buzzed insistently. It was Mia, asking if she could come over tomorrow to help with meal prepping. Helen hesitated, the specter of doubt creeping back into her mind. Did she want help or an audience? Suddenly, she felt the familiar pull of conflict embrace the support or withdraw, fortifying the walls around her ambitions. She pressed her lips together in contemplation. The fabric of change was stitched with precision, but she was still the creator. Would she reveal her newfound aspirations to Mia? Or would she guard her vision like a secret treasure, waiting until it was perfect to unveil? With a deep exhale, she sent a quick text back. I love your help, but I need to share something special. The message sent, she felt a wave of anticipation tinged with fear. Each decision would shape the journey ahead, and she knew the moment of truth was drawing closer. The door to her culinary future creaked open, but what would come flooding through it? Helen woke the next morning with a sense of urgency pulsating through her. This was no ordinary day. It was the day that could determine not just her day-to-day life, but her entire future. The scent of brewed coffee wafted through the air, filling the kitchen and nudging her awake, pushing her to confront the tidal wave of uncertainty rolling in her mind. As she savored each sip, Helen's resolve intensified. Mia was due to arrive soon. She glanced around her space, familiar yet transformed by her wakefulness. This kitchen, once merely a hub of daily sustenance, was on the precipice of becoming a recording studio of her life, the essence of her culinary journey, poised to spill onto the pages of a cookbook only she could write. Thoughts roamed through her mind like anxious children. Would it be a success? Would her stories resonate with others? Fears tried to tether her back. Yet standing at the kitchen counter, she felt a sliver of courage shimmering beneath her uncertainty. The stories she had told her grandchildren were profound. They contained grains of truth interlaced with offerings of love. As the clock approached 11, Helen took a deep breath, and set about creating a specific recipe for their meal prep, an avocado-stuffed quinoa salad, vibrant and wholesome, the kind of dish that radiated her renewed spirit. She chopped the vegetables with a precision that matched her growing confidence. Each slice felt less like an ordinary task and more like a declaration of her intent to step boldly into her aspirations. Just as she began mixing the ingredients, Mia arrived, her energetic presence lighting up the room. "Hey, Helen. Smells amazing in here." She entered with the ease of long friendship, but as she bent to kiss Helen's cheek, the familiar tension returned to the air. "Thanks. I'm trying something new," Helen replied as she diverted attention to the salad bowl, her voice steady yet tinged with unspoken revelations as they prepared the meal together. Their conversation flowed naturally at first, dishing out snippets of their lives. But Helen felt the weight of her unshared ambition lingering between them. A privilege of friendship was the opportunity for authenticity, yet the prospect of vulnerability intimidated her. "Do you remember when we tried to make that chunky avocado dip?" Mia laughed, recalling a memory from decades past. It became a point of connection, an anchor of comfort. Helen laughed as well, but within the shared nostalgia lay an urgency within her. She needed to reveal the deeper layer, the cookbook, the legacy she wished to create. "Mia, I've been thinking," she started, but the words caught in her throat. Would Mia understand? Would she dismiss her ambitions as fancy indulgence? Sensing her hesitation, Mia leaned in, wiping her hands on a towel. "What is on your mind? You look passionate about something." In that moment, her heart sped up. Helen took a deep breath, measuring her words as she would while teaching. "I want to write a cookbook," she said, her voice both small and defiant. "Not just recipes, but stories. Stories woven into the food I've made for our family. Lessons I've learned over the years." Mia's eyes widened, initially surprised, but quickly morphing into an enthusiastic sparkle. "That sounds incredible. You've always had a way with stories, Helen," she encouraged, clapping her hands together. But beneath her friend's support lurked an unsettling fear. Helen had merely opened the door to a world of judgment. What if the universe rejected her dream? "Really? You think so?" she questioned, surprised at her own voice's vulnerability. "Absolutely. You have so much to share. I can help you." Helen wasn't prepared for the swell of gratitude that surged through her, yet doubt crept silently back in the wake of Mia's excitement. Could her words truly resonate? Could she convert her fragmented memories into something cohesive and compelling? Their afternoon unfolded pleasantly, but as they packed up their creations, Helen's internal conflict deepened. The commitment to show her true self became clearer yet more daunting. As Mia began loading up her car with containers, Helen's heart raced. Did she have the courage to embrace this newfound path, to circumvent her fears, and engage fully in the expression of her culinary narrative? As they hugged goodbye, Mia's lingering words echoed in her head. "Helen, you've always had the heart of a writer. Don't underestimate that." Now, left alone, Helen pondered the weight of those words. Perhaps this was her moment to not just confront the fear of aging, but to grow alongside it, to flourish in the stories she lived. But first, she would have to take that leap of faith. With her heart pounding and determination stirring, she took her notebook from the kitchen counter, ready to write a page that could change everything. Yet, in the quiet afterthought, a troubling thought lingered. Her next move had to be decisive. What if sharing her deepest fears meant revealing her vulnerabilities? What if that would reshape everything she believed about herself? The hours slipped by in a blur as Helen paced her kitchen, notebook clutched in her hand. The pencil hovered over the page, taunting her. Could she truly articulate the rich tapestry of her culinary history, the love layered within each recipe? Each culinary memory held the potential to leap from merely personal to broadly relatable, but she'd have to strip away her reservations. She sensed the weight of potential stories pressing down on her shoulders. A comforting warmth washed over her, reminiscent of afternoons spent with family, meal preps serving as a backdrop to laughter and lessons. But that warmth was tinged with self-doubt. What if the stories that felt so vibrant within her remained unheard, lost in the confines of her heart? Suddenly, vivid images flashed in her mind. Her mother teaching her to bake bread, the scent of yeast rising like hope, and the joy of sharing a meal around a rickety old table crowded with family. Each thought was a pulse of encouragement against her wavering resolve. Could she summon that feeling of connection through her writing? Setting her jaw, Helen put pencil to paper. The first words were hesitant, yet she pressed on, capturing moments layered with affection and wisdom. The act of writing felt reminiscent of something long forgotten. It was both exhilarating and frightening to confront her fears head-on through the written word. Time faded as she explored deeper themes: her early struggles with confidence, the trials of mothering, the triumphs of resilience. But even in this flow, unsettling thoughts interrupted her. Would she be able to translate the emotional depth into relatable prose? The fear of inadequacy pulsed in her veins. But she couldn't afford to hesitate any longer. She had spent enough time in waiting rooms of self-doubt, reeling from what-ifs. Each stroke of the pencil was becoming an assertion of her existence, an exploration of identity tethered to her culinary past. The tension of vulnerability was palpable, but it was also liberating. This was her narrative, hers to mold. With renewed resolve, she decided to take a break for inspiration. A walk might shift her perspective. Emerging from her home into the crisp air felt electric, invigorating, and serene at once. The gardens in the neighborhood bloomed wildly with colors, each flower a lesson in perseverance. She wandered slowly, breathing in the fresh scents as she considered her upcoming steps. Suddenly, a thought struck her. What if she collected recipes from friends and family to interweave their stories into her cookbook? Every person she cooked with had a narrative to tell. Their experiences encapsulated a world far beyond her own. Helen's heart leapt at the idea, excitement flooding her senses. It wasn't just her journey. It was a collective tapestry of lives woven together through food. By the time she returned home, her mind raced with ideas and threads to explore. This project could transcend her fears. It could create a community of shared experiences. Potential recipes bobbed around her mind as she envisioned chapters forming every dish a vessel for memories and anecdotes drawn from others' lives too. Seated once more at the kitchen counter, Helen jotted down ideas feverishly. She aimed to create forms for her storytelling that were both heartfelt and nourishing. But even amidst this burst of creativity, shadows of apprehension flickered. What if her contributions weren't enough? Would these stories resonate, enrich, or simply fade into obscurity like her doubts? A resolute shift in energy coursed through her. She reminded herself that her voice mattered. The true essence of her intent was not grounded in perfection, but in authenticity. If she could capture her fears and triumphs honestly, it might very well invite others to share their own truths. As night descended, Helen's notebook filled with scribbles, a mosaic of memories spiraling toward a greater narrative. With each passing moment, she felt the heavy chains of doubt loosening. If she relied on the power of community and storytelling, she could move forward. But before she tucked her notebook away, one looming question remained: was she ready to host gatherings to collect those stories? Would divulging her personal ambitions become a bridge for others, or would it reveal her insecurities? That nagging uncertainty swirled within her as she turned off the kitchen light. It brought a new resolve to not only write, but to invite connection. The moment to face her hidden fears head-on was drawing near. The next step awaited, tantalizingly close yet unknown. Would she summon the courage to lead those gatherings and dare to expose her vulnerabilities to her friends and family? Helen's heart raced as she laid wide awake in her bed, the moon's glow spilling across the room, casting playful shadows on the walls. The night brought no reprieve from the questions that had taken root in her mind. Each tick of the clock echoed her unsteady breath, reminding her that tomorrow was the day she had decided to reach out to her friends and family. Was she truly ready to unfold this chapter of her life? Or was she merely feeding her own insecurities? As dawn broke, casting a soft light into her kitchen, Helen found herself drawn once again to her notebook. She flipped through its pages, reading her scattered thoughts and revelations. Each line pulsated with raw emotion, fragments of memories longing to be shared. Could the stories of all the meals she'd prepared, the laughter shared at those tables, resonate with others the way they resonated with her? A shaky determination propelled her to draft a message to a small group of close friends. She envisioned the gathering taking shape in her kitchen, a realm she had long nurtured but was now being transformed into something greater: a club of storytellers, ready to share their culinary lives. Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard, hesitating to push send. What if they turned her down? What if they laughed? A myriad of worst-case scenarios slashed through her mind. But as she inhaled deeply, the scent of freshly brewed coffee enveloped her, a comforting companion. She reminded herself of the laughter and stories that had once filled her kitchen. With a swift motion, she hit send, closing her eyes for a moment in a mixture of fear and anticipation. The minutes passed like hours, each second swelling with anxious energy. Then, a ding pierced the silence. Responses flooded in, enthusiasm radiating from them. Count me in. I can't wait to see what you have in mind. A wave of relief washed over her, carrying away some of the weight she had been carrying. Engaged now with the excitement, Helen began brainstorming how the gathering would unfold. She would ask each friend to bring one recipe that held a significant story for them. It felt right. This project was no longer solely about her, it was about weaving everyone's narratives together, forming a tapestry rich with experience, love, and life lessons. The thought ignited her creativity, and she started jotting down themes for the evening. Cooking styles, family traditions, maybe even a discussion about how food affected their lives beyond the plate. But at the same time, that flicker of doubt still lingered, whispering questions in her ear. Could she orchestrate a gathering that would truly honor those stories? Would her skills as a host falter in the face of vulnerability? When evening descended, Helen prepared the space, clearing her kitchen island and setting up chairs around the table. She placed fresh flowers in a vase, cleaned the countertops until they gleamed, and simmered a pot of spiced chai to bring warmth to the atmosphere. As she arranged everything, her heart pounded with a mix of anticipation and dread. The moment of truth approached as each friend began to trickle in. Conversations bubbled around her like a gentle cauldron, but with each laugh, Helen felt her own tension building. How could she relax and lead if she felt so transparent? Each smile in her circle felt like magnifying glass, intensifying her fears. Did they see her uncertainty? Finally, Helen stood at the center of the kitchen. She cleared her throat, feeling a surreal mix of empowerment and vulnerability. It was time to embrace what she had initiated, to confront not only her own hesitations, but to step boldly into the role she embodied as storyteller and host. Thank you all for being here. I'm so excited for what we're about to create together, she began, her voice trembling. Just as she began to breathe in the moment, a penetrating thought struck her, sharpening her focus. How would her own story blend with theirs? Could she genuinely connect the personal with the collective without losing her footing? The evening promised to reveal more than just recipes. It whipped up the storm of emotional discovery ahead. The time had come to dive deeper into vulnerability than she ever expected. As the laughter surrounded her, she realized with dawning clarity that leading this gathering might just redefine what she understood about her own story. Helen stood in her kitchen, the laughter and chatter of friends swirling around her like the steam rising from the pot of chai. It was a cacophony that both soothed and unsettled her. She had opened the door to vulnerability, but now she felt the weight of expectations pressing down, threatening to crush her fledgling confidence. As her friends shared their culinary anecdotes, Helen became acutely aware of how each story carried a slice of its teller, a reflection of their triumphs, heartaches, and family legacies. With every recipe unveiled, she could feel the threads of her own narrative weave into the fabric of the evening. However, a nagging thought clung to her. Was her story enough to stand beside theirs? She watched as Lydia, a longtime friend with a vibrant personality, recounted how her grandmother's apple pie recipe had saved her from a difficult breakup years ago. The room erupted in laughter, bridging the gap between lightheartedness and introspection. The moment Lydia revealed her grandmother's handwritten notes, lovingly preserved, Helen felt a pang of longing. Where were her own family stories? Were they worthy enough to claim a spot on this hallowed table of memories? "What's your dish, Helen?" Lydia's voice cut through her thoughts, and suddenly, it was her time to speak. The pressure simmered just beneath the surface, crimson heat rising in her cheeks. I'm making a spicy coconut curry that my parents often cooked for dinner," she stammered, her confidence wavering. But the more she spoke about how the dish held memories of family gatherings where laughter spilled between bites and stories spilled over bowls, the more the words flowed. She shared the inspiration behind the recipe, Her childhood memories of aromatic spices wafting through the air, and how each ingredient resonated with something deeper. To her surprise, silence enveloped the room, but not an uncomfortable silence. Instead, her friends nodded, their eyes wide with engagement, as if feasting not just on the story, but on the raw emotion that fueled it. In that moment, she realized her vulnerability was not a weakness to be exploited, but a strength calling out to be accepted. There it was, a fracture in her self-doubt. As her story unfurled, she felt the complex layers within herself unraveled. Each tale, whether humorous or poignant, was unearthing a piece of her identity. Did cooking always mean sharing? Was she merely a vessel for stories waiting to be embraced? With newfound clarity, she sought to rein in the threads of the evening. Let's not just share recipes. Let us discuss what they mean to us. How much of who we are intertwines with what we cook and share. The crowd responded as if sparked by a match, and soon the kitchen buzzed with ideas and thoughts. The very act of leading this sacred sharing ignited Helen's passion for storytelling and culinary art in a way she hadn't anticipated. An opening, a potential. This was her calling, and she was standing on the threshold. Yet just as she began to revel in this shift, a realization rushed in, fragile and looming. What of the shadowed corner of her past, the hesitance that still shadowed her? Would they embrace not just her cooking but the fears she associated with it? If they saw her imperfections, would they still value her story? As the laughter crescendoed again, Helen hesitated, the knot tightening in her stomach. One question gnawed at her. Did she truly have the strength to lead this charge into the deeper layers of shared experience, revealing the messiness of her journey? The evening promised growth, reconciliation, and challenge. It had only just begun, but in her heart, she felt the road ahead might require more than recipes. She may have to confront the tougher ingredients of her own self-acceptance along the way. And as they sat down to taste the curry, a new thought swelled within her. Perhaps it was time to test the limits of both her culinary and emotional prowess in ways she had never considered. The thought ignited a wild longing. How might she reveal the most profound parts of herself, and paradoxically, push her own boundaries even further? The curry simmered gently on the stove as Helen watched her friends indulge. They presented a vivid tableau of expression, mouths full, laughter spilling, eyes glimmering with delight. With every satisfied sigh and shared bite, Helen felt her earlier anxieties give way to something more profound, a stirring realization that she was not just a bystander, but an integral part of this vibrant tapestry. As they shared their own experiences, Helen's mind wrestled with her commitment to authenticity. Each story unthreaded a layer of her hesitation, revealing a raw, complex relationship with her past and her cooking. Should she dive deeper into those guarded memories that colored her culinary journey? The unsettling yet compelling thoughts hung heavy in the air. After the plates were cleared, Lydia suggested a game of culinary truth or dare, leaving Helen momentarily aghast. The tone was lighthearted, but Helen felt a tremor beneath the surface. She could already sense the anticipation. You could share an embarrassing cooking failure or create a dish with mystery ingredients. It was a risk she wasn't sure she wanted to engage with. Her hands fidgeted as others expressed their excitement. But what if I reveal something too messy? Her inner voice whispered a familiar tune of self-doubt. Struggling against the tide of fear, she recognized that vulnerability was also a form of courage. Perhaps by sharing her truths, she could inspire others to do the same. When it was her turn, with insecurity bubbling within her, she decided to share a kitchen disaster that still haunted her culinary dreams. I once tried to impress my family with a complex dish, a saffron rice pilaf, and forgot to rinse the rice. It turned into a starchy lump instead. She chuckled, the sound hesitant, yet gaining strength. The laughter erupted, relief washing over her as their faces filled with empathy rather than judgment. It was a moment of unguarded clarity. Her imperfections were not liabilities but common threads that created connection. Helen found herself unexpectedly buoyed, strength seeping into her resolve. As the game continued, the stories flowed, mistakes transformed into humorous anecdotes, serious mishaps became shared bonds. What had originally felt daunting now felt liberating. She recognized that the tapestry of culinary tradition held both splendor and the potential for embarrassment. Each participant, including her, was weaving a story that captured life's imperfections. After the bucket of shared experiences, Helen felt emboldened. The evening wasn't simply about the food. It was about the brave act of sharing themselves, of exposing the deeper layers that resided within. The cooking lessons were intertwined with life lessons, and she began to plan how she might deepen this newfound journey in the weeks to come. Offering a new perspective, she suggested a monthly theme for cooking nights, where they not only shared meals but attempted recipes rooted in personal stories. Let us create a series of evenings dedicated to dishes that shaped our lives, what do you say? The enthusiasm that followed filled her with a burgeoning sense of purpose. Yet, amidst the excitement, a shadow flickered at the edges of her mind. While she was ready to explore her culinary ancestry, could she still face the seeds of hesitation that lay beneath her surface? Would her past be an anchor or an inspiration? As her friends rallied around the idea, Helen felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. The image of the culinary showdown loomed before her, a journey framed around connection, growth, and discovery, but also one that could threaten to unravel her sense of self. Would she dare to confront the fears that lingered, waiting to be brought into the light? As they toasted to newfound adventures and shared dreams, Helen pondered her next steps, balancing on the precipice of a thrilling yet unsettling evolution. With each hands raised in celebration, one more question danced in her consciousness. How deeply might she risk exposing the fragmented corners of her journey? The night promised healing, but only if she was willing to embrace every bittersweet morsel. The weeks rolled on, each culinary evening weaving a richer narrative of connection. The kitchen transformed into a vibrant laboratory filled with the sense of nostalgia, mingling with the boldness of discovery. Helen felt a sense of purpose exuding from her every dish. It was as if she were reclaiming her culinary identity. Yet, under this newfound enthusiasm simmered an ever-pressing need to confront the deeper shadows of her past. The first themed night had been a celebration of family recipes. Lydia shared her grandmother's famed chicken pot pie, infused with tales of family gatherings where laughter mingled with the aroma of baked crust. Alex recounted his father's barbecue techniques, his pride palpable as he demonstrated an authentic rub. And Helen, in an act of vulnerability, shared a beloved but forgotten recipe for her mother's guacamole, embedded with memories of summer days spent in the backyard. Each story echoed with emotional depth, cradling the room in a warmth that felt both liberating and daunting. However, Helen felt an anxious knot tightening within her, confronting her reluctance to delve deeper into the pivotal moments that shaped her culinary journey. The past loomed over her like an unfinished chapter, begging for resolution. What might it reveal about her capabilities, her ambitions, or her very identity? Questions fought for attention, wresting her focus away from the joyful atmosphere around her. Determined to embrace her fears, she planned her next presentation carefully. She decided to prepare the dish that had persistently haunted her grandmother's shepherd's pie, a recipe she had never quite mastered despite the fond childhood memories associated with it. Each attempt had resulted in a dense, uninspired replica, falling short of the fluffy allure of the original. Even the thought of taking this risk made her stomach flutter with apprehension as she began her preparations. Helen found herself grappling with the contrast between her goals and insecurities. Her hands moved mechanically, chopping and sautéing, but her thoughts spiraled. How could she possibly showcase a recipe that had become synonymous with failure? Doubt nipped at her heels. What if she disappointed everyone with another underwhelming offering? Yet with each blow from her emotional weights, she cultivated a resolve deeper than her fears. She recalled the laughter from the recent gatherings, the comfort found in sharing imperfect dishes. Instead of framing her preparation as a pathway to perfection, Helen began to view it as an opportunity for exploration. This dish didn't have to be flawless. It could be a reflection of her journey, a manifestation of growth, mistakes, and newfound confidence. That evening, when her friends gathered, Helen presented her shepherd's pie, accompanied by a heartfelt reflection on her struggle with the recipe. The act of vulnerability broke the ice. She shared her fears, her past failures, and how the very act of cooking had evolved from a pressure-laden task into a space of personal expression. As she revealed her journey, She felt the shared resonance of the group's experiences. It was not merely her story anymore. It was a tapestry woven of their collective struggles and triumphs. In the warmth of their shared laughter and encouragement, something shifted within Helen. This time, the shepherd's pie turned out beautifully, a golden, bubbling blend crafted from the mistakes and lessons she had embraced. It was a reflection not merely of skill, but of transformation. The evening morphed into an engaging discussion about the value of imperfection, of how every misstep created stories worth sharing, and deeper connections forged through the act of cooking. But as the night wore on and the last forks clinked against plates, a question echoed through her mind, unmistakably louder than before. If she could transform a dish so laden with past disappointments into a celebration, what else was she capable of in her professional life? As her friends departed, Helen lingered in the kitchen, feeling a burgeoning desire to confront the next facet of her journey. It was time to explore not just the recipes of her past, but the professional aspirations that she had tucked away, waiting for the right moment to emerge. With determination settling in like the aroma of spices in the kitchen, she realized the true test loomed ahead. How could she breathe life into her culinary dreams, and what risks would she take to ensure they blossomed? The answer beckoned like an uncharted recipe, calling her to discover its secrets. Helen stood alone in the kitchen, the remnants of the evening still scattered across the counters. The warmth of camaraderie lingered in the air, but the thrill of her shepherd's pie unveiling began to fade, replaced by a more profound contemplation of her own professional ambitions. Her heart raced with anticipation and anxiety as the questions loomed large. What did she want to achieve in her culinary career, and how could she reclaim her dreams with the same courage she had shown in front of her friends? The kitchen, once a merely functional space, now felt like a battleground for her aspirations. Her mind raced with flashes of her childhood visions of culinary triumph. She had fantasized about running a restaurant, experimenting with flavors that would turn meals into memories. Yet, so many years were lost in hesitance. The mere thought of venturing beyond her current circle sent waves of uncertainty crashing over her. Would she disappoint her own expectations again? In a moment of clarity, Helen sought the courage to set tangible goals. If she could mix ancient family recipes with modern techniques, it might create something uniquely hers. She pulled out a notebook, its pages fresh and crisp, just as her long-deferred dreams demanded. As she scribbled ideas, innovative twists on comforting classics, her mind began to feel lighter, as though shedding the weight of doubt with each word. But it wasn't just the restaurant she envisioned. It was a brand that spoke to more than food. It would embody her journey, showcasing the beauty of evolution within every dish. Her heritage of flavors could serve as culinary therapy, not just for her, but for anyone who dared to embrace their imperfections. This fusion could encourage others to confront their struggles, just as she had done. Slowly, a spark ignited within. However, with every stroke of her pen came the haunting whispers of her past failures, distorted memories of scattered dreams, mistakes that gnawed at her conscience. She paused, the vulnerability that had once inspired her now feeling like another burden. It was daunting to think of launching her culinary venture while holding on to the ghosts of insecurity. Yet there was an undeniable fire in her belly, one that had risen from the ashes of her past. What do I have to lose? Helen questioned aloud, letting the answer echo in the empty space. The only thing stopping her was herself, the very fear that had tethered her for so long. Instead of stumbling into doubt, she envisioned success grounded in authenticity. That night, she made a decision. Tomorrow was the day she would step out of her comfort zone and visit local markets, talking to vendors, and perhaps even conducting a cooking demonstration. It felt like a leap into unknown waters, but the thrill of adventure outweighed her apprehensions. Each interaction was a step forward, a way to connect with the community that would help shape her culinary identity. Helen knew it wouldn't be easy. There would always be trials and probably errors awaiting her. But the real questions simmered beneath the surface. What kind of chef did she want to become? And what legacy conjures when a woman reaches for her dreams despite failure? As she tossed her pen down, exhausted but exhilarated, she consciously embraced the idea of balancing ambition with authenticity. She turned off the kitchen light. Stepping into the dark, the sound of her heartbeat filled the silence, a rhythmic reminder of her commitment to embark on this journey. Just as her shepherd's pie had transformed from a symbol of failure into inspiration, she was ready to craft her future from the blend of her past. But amid her determination, a flicker of uncertainty glimmered within her. What if her ideas didn't resonate with others the way they resonated in her mind? She had interrogated her culinary shortcomings, but was she ready to face the doubts and rejections that might accompany her professional aspirations? The next morning would arrive, and Helen knew it would bring choices that could either forge her path to empowerment or leave her teetering at the edge of indecision. Helen stood at the edge of her kitchen, the air thick with the aroma of fresh herbs mingling with the anticipation of new beginnings. The past few weeks had seen her emerge from the shadows of self-doubt, but the next step loomed ahead: how to fully embrace her culinary ambitions while remaining authentic to herself. Each meal prepared and story shared with friends had showcased the lessons she'd accumulated over the years, yet she felt the urgency to carve a tangible niche in the culinary landscape. The prior gathering had allowed her to finally shed layers of vulnerability. Now, Helen understood that creating something meaningful required stepping into the arena, confronting fear not just as an emotion, but as a motivator. It was time to launch her culinary venture, one where memories and flavors intertwined to forge a significant legacy. With determination coursing through her veins, Helen opened her notebook to a fresh page. She began sketching plans for her cooking demonstrations at the local markets, envisioning a space where experiences could be exchanged just as freely as ingredients. Each demonstration would not just serve up her recipes, but would also intertwine personal stories, allowing others to connect with the essence of the dishes she prepared. She meticulously outlined the first demonstration: avocado toast evolved into an ode of connectivity, showcasing simple yet vibrant toppings and sharing anecdotes emphasizing the significance of gathering around food. Every element written down was loaded with intention, and as she filled the page, Helen felt tantalizing excitement. Could this be the turning point that turned mere aspirations into achievements? Once the plan solidified, the next urge was to manifest her journey through social media. Helen contemplated creating an online presence where she could share culinary techniques, alongside the heartfelt stories woven into her recipes, a virtual diary where her path could inspire others to confront their own struggles. It was recognizably daunting to embrace digital scrutiny, but she reminded herself that every great chef had a story, and hers would tell of resilience. The very thought sparked a fire in her. She grabbed her phone and set up an account, naming it simply Helen, the culinary stories behind the cooking. Leaning into her growing confidence, she started by posting the images of her avocado toast, articulating the emotional connection she felt with the ingredients, each detail serving as a thread in her tapestry. She felt liberated, her voice emerging from the depths. Yet, lingering thoughts intruded. Would anyone resonate with her? But as the comments began to roll in, supportive, curious, and engaged, she experienced a rush of satisfaction. It was validation that she had uplifted a shared human experience through the simple act of cooking. With every like and share, she felt her community growing stronger, a network of engaged individuals eager to join her journey. This newfound clarity blossomed into further ideas. Every cooking session at the local markets transformed into a storytelling event, blending live cooking with shared narratives, the gathering of memories around food blossoming into a community affair. Different themes adorned each event, inviting diverse participants to share their stories alongside hers, creating a rich experience that reaffirmed the connections forged in the kitchen. As the first demonstration day approached, Helen prepared fervently, her anticipation mounting alongside quickening anxiety. Would she be able to captivate an audience and share her culinary vision without reverting to the insecurity that had once clouded her? The moment drew closer, her resolve tightening with each passing hour. When the day arrived, Helen stood behind her makeshift stage at the market, a colorful arrangement of ingredients spread out before her. The vibrant display drew in curious onlookers, creating an audience both intimate and inviting. As she began her demonstration, her confidence soared with each recipe shared, her voice steady and assured. "Cooking is more than just following instructions," she stated, inhaling the fragrance wafting from her avocado toast. "It's a journey of mistakes made, of memories created, of love shared. Today, let us explore how we can transform the simplest ingredients into a vessel of connection. The crowd watched enraptured as Helen shared her anecdotes, blending them with the cooking process. With every story, her charm deepened, fostering a dialogue infused with laughter and relatable experiences. The culmination arrived as she plated the beautifully crafted avocado toast, her heart full as she invited everyone to gather around for a taste. The compliments flowed freely, each one lifting her spirits further, confirming her belief that vulnerability could lead to profound connections. At that moment, in the laughter and shared enjoyment resonating in the air, Helen felt the embodiment of her transformation. She was no longer that hesitant woman wondering if she could keep up with youth. She had evolved into a respected storyteller and a confident culinary visionary. By the time the event wrapped up, she gathered feedback, her heart swelling with gratitude and pride as attendees sought her contact to learn more and share their recipes too. She could hardly believe it. She had accomplished what had once seemed an insurmountable wall of fear. In essence, Helen had achieved so much more than a mere cooking demonstration. She had cultivated a community, intertwined her past with an emerging future, and embraced her identity as a chef without losing the truths that defined her. Leaving the market, her heart swelled with pride and recognition. This was her new chapter, one of culinary connection where each plate told a story, promising an insatiable journey ahead. Helen gazed around, taking in the world before her with jubilance. She had emerged from the dim-lit corners of her kitchen into the brightness of possibility. She was finally ready to rise and conquer. Each cooking event ahead, she knew, would only further cement her legacy, a blossoming testament that personal fulfillment is not just about succeeding in solitary pursuits, but about sharing, connecting, and embracing the power of vulnerability. Now was the moment to soar and inspire others to chase their dreams without reserve. Helen stepped forward into a future gleaming with potential, resolute in her newfound role as both chef and storyteller. You need to subscribe now for more exclusive emotional stories of transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find this journey. Comment below with your reactions and share your own tales of perseverance. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this incredible conclusion.